Becoming emotionally untouchable is not about shutting down your feelings or pretending nothing affects you. It is about reaching the point where no insult, delay, criticism, or chaos can drag you away from who you choose to be. You feel anger rise, tension tighten your chest, and the urge to react takes over. Yet deep down, you know that every reaction costs you energy, clarity, and self-respect. The Stoics believe that this moment is not a weakness, but an opportunity, a quiet battlefield where true power is decided. They saw emotional control not as suppression, but as mastery, the ability to pause, choose, and act with intention instead of impulse. If you are tired of being triggered by small things, tired of replaying conversations, tired of giving your peace to people who did not earn it, this message is for you. You are not broken, and you are not alone in this struggle. Stay with me to learn how calm becomes strength, how discipline becomes freedom, and how inner control changes everything. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, and comment one affirmation below, starting with I, for example. I choose calm. 1. Stop letting emotion decide who you become. The confusion between I am an angry person and I am reacting out of habit is a common psychological blind spot that keeps people trapped. That single misunderstanding quietly shapes identity, because when anger feels personal, it feels permanent. And when it feels permanent, people stop questioning it. Becoming emotionally untouchable begins right here, at the moment you separate who you are from what you feel. If emotions decide who you become, then every insult, delay, careless word, or unexpected problem owns a piece of you. Calm disappears, control slips, and life turns into a series of reactions you later justify or regret. Emotional control is often mistaken for repression, but it is neither denial nor numbness. It is the ability to stay calm long enough to choose your response instead of being dragged by it. One of the most common mistakes is believing anger proves strength or authenticity, as if losing control means being honest, while restraint means being fake. This belief feeds anger issues, emotional triggers, and the sense of constantly losing control. People tell themselves they are just passionate, just intense, just built this way, while in reality, they are repeating learned responses reinforced over years. Stoic thinking cuts through this illusion with precision. It treats anger as a habit, not a personality, something practiced so often it feels natural. Epictetus expressed this sharply when he argued that people are disturbed not by events, but by their judgments about those events. That idea shifts power inward. If judgment creates disturbance, then judgment can also remove it. A man who snaps in traffic, explodes during meetings, or carries resentment home each night is not doomed by temperament. He is running a pattern. Patterns can be interrupted. Without this realization, calm remains out of reach because effort is spent trying to change the world instead of learning how to stop reacting. Many search online for how to stay calm, how to stop reacting, or how to control emotions, assuming the solution lies in better circumstances or other people behaving differently. The Stoic approach refuses that escape. It insists that inner discipline matters more than external order, because life will always provide friction. A quiet example makes this clear. Imagine a worker publicly criticized by a superior. The words sting, heat rises, old habits urge defense, or silence filled with resentment. One response feeds the habit and strengthens it. Another pauses, observes the feeling, and lets it pass before choosing words. From the outside, nothing dramatic happens. Yet inside, a shift takes place. That man protected his peace and trained mental resilience in a real moment, not a theory. This is how identity changes. Action by action, response by response, the habit weakens. Calm becomes familiar. Control becomes reliable. Emotional control grows not through force, but through awareness repeated daily. Inspiration follows naturally when you realize no one can make you angry without your participation. That truth is not comforting at first because it removes excuses, but it is freeing. You stop waiting for the world to be gentle and start becoming steady. Practice does not need complexity. When irritation appears, name it without judgment. Notice the urge to act. Delay speech by a breath. Ask whether the reaction serves who you want to become. This small pause protects inner peace more effectively than any argument. Over time, constant stress loses its grip because it no longer defines you. You stop being the person emotions push around and become the one who decides. That is the foundation of becoming emotionally untouchable, not through isolation or hardness, but through quiet mastery exercised in ordinary moments. 2. Learn to stay calm. When you are being tested, the moment you are spoken about badly in front of others, what do you want to do most? Your body answers before your mind does. The jaw tightens, the chest warms. Words line up, sharp and fast, ready to defend your name or strike back. This is the test most people never recognize. They believe the test is about reputation, respect, or winning the moment. In truth, the test is about whether you allow that moment to decide who you become. Becoming emotionally untouchable does not mean avoiding these situations. It means standing inside them without losing yourself. To stay calm when you are being tested is not passivity, it is not weakness, and it is not silence born from fear. Calm in this sense is active control. It is the refusal to let emotional triggers hijack your behavior. Emotional control here means holding steady long enough to choose your response rather than reacting on instinct. Many people search for how to stay calm because they feel tired of constant stress and losing control in moments that matter. Yet the common mistake is thinking calm arrives after the situation improves. In reality, calm is what allows the situation to improve, or at the very least prevents it from damaging you. Most people fail this test because they confuse reaction with strength. When criticized unfairly or mocked in public, reacting quickly feels like self-respect. Raising your voice, interrupting, or firing back seems to restore balance. What it actually does is hand control to the person testing you. The louder the reaction, the clearer the evidence that they reached you. This is where anger issues grow roots. Each outburst reinforces the belief that calm equals surrender and that silence means losing. Over time, emotional triggers multiply, and the world feels hostile because every interaction becomes a potential threat to the ego. Stoic thought approaches this moment differently. It treats the test as internal rather than external. The real question is not who is right, but who is in control. Marcus Aurelius ruled in a world of betrayal, rumor, and public scrutiny, yet he returned again and again to the same principle. Mastery of the mind outweighs mastery of circumstances. When tested, he trained himself to pause, not to win approval, but to preserve inner discipline. This pause did not erase injustice, but it prevented injustice from shaping his character. A simple, ordinary example shows how this works in real life. In a meeting, a colleague dismisses your work with a careless remark. Eyes turn toward you. The familiar heat rises. You could argue, justify, or shut down in resentment. Instead, you breathe, acknowledge the comment briefly, and move on. Later, you address the issue privately with clarity. In that moment, you did not lose power. You gained it. You protected inner peace, preserved mental resilience, and demonstrated control without display. The room felt it, even if no one named it. Staying calm when tested requires accepting a hard truth. You cannot control what others say, but you can control whether their words live inside you. This is where many fail because they believe control means dominance. Stoic discipline reframes control as self-command. When you remain steady, the test ends quickly. When you react, it continues. Calm shortens conflict. Reaction extends it. Action begins with intention. Decide in advance that public tests do not deserve private chaos. When tension appears, slow your speech. Let the urge to react pass like the weather. Ask whether the response you want serves the person you are becoming. This practice answers many searches for how to control emotions and how to stop reacting, not through tricks, but through repetition. Each time you hold calm under pressure, constant stress loses leverage over you. A simple practice anchors this discipline. When tested, delay your response by one full breath. Feel your feet on the ground. Let the first reaction fade before choosing words. This pause trains emotional control more effectively than hours of reflection. Over time, you stop fearing these moments because They no longer threaten you. Tests remain, but they do not touch you. That is how calm becomes strength and how you learn to stay unbothered when it matters most. 3. Build inner control before life provokes you. A father comes home after a long, exhausting day. His mind is still heavy with deadlines, noise, and unfinished thoughts. His child runs past the table and spills a drink onto the laptop. The room freezes for a second. The old reaction is ready. Anger waits close, but he stops. He breathes. He cleans the mess. He speaks calmly because he has practiced stopping before this moment ever arrived. That is what it means to build inner control before life provokes you, and it sits at the core of becoming emotionally untouchable. Inner control is not something you summon when things go wrong. It is something you carry with you long before they do. Many people search for how to stay calm only when they are already overwhelmed. They wait for pressure to teach them discipline. Pressure does not teach discipline. It exposes the lack of it. Emotional control works the same way physical strength does. You do not lift heavy weights for the first time in a crisis and expect success. You train quietly, consistently, and without an audience. The same is true for learning how to control emotions and protect inner peace. The most common mistake is believing calm appears automatically with maturity or good intentions. People tell themselves that next time they will react better. They assume awareness is enough. But when emotional triggers strike, habits speak louder than promises. Constant stress, fatigue, and distraction weaken restraint, and losing control feels inevitable. This mistake keeps people trapped in cycles of regret because they rely on willpower instead of preparation. Willpower fades under pressure. Training does not. Stoic thinking removes the illusion that self-control is a switch. It treats calm as a skill forged through repetition. Inner discipline is built in ordinary moments, not dramatic ones. When you practice patience in small irritations, you prepare for larger tests. When you slow your breath during minor frustration, you strengthen mental resilience for real conflict. Stoic practice never waits for life to be kind. It assumes life will test you and prepares accordingly. An ordinary example makes this clear. A man begins his mornings by sitting in silence for 5 minutes. No phone, no noise. He notices his thoughts and lets them pass. At night, he reflects briefly on where he lost control and where he held it. Nothing about this looks heroic. No one applauds. Yet weeks later, when work pressure rises and conversations sharpen, something has changed. He pauses naturally. He speaks less but with more weight. Emotional triggers still appear, but they no longer command him. Inner control formed before life demanded it. This is why building calm early protects you later. When anger issues surface, they do not come from the event itself. They come from an untrained response. Without preparation, the nervous system reacts fast and loudly. With preparation, it slows. That slowing is power. It creates space between stimulus and action, and in that space, you choose who you become. Over time, this choice stops feeling forced and starts feeling natural. You stop asking how to stop reacting because the reaction no longer feels necessary. Stoic discipline does not promise a quiet life. It promises a steady one. Becoming emotionally untouchable means life can provoke you without possessing you. You still feel frustrated. You still notice injustice. You simply do not let those feelings decide your behavior. Inner discipline stands between impulse and action, like a guard you trained yourself. The stronger the guard becomes, the less effort it takes to remain calm. Action begins with routine, not motivation. Choose one moment each day to practice restraint when it costs little. Slow down the response. Sit with discomfort without distraction. Notice the urge to speak and let it pass. These acts seem small, but they accumulate. They reduce constant stress and rebuild trust in your ability to stay unbothered. Over time, calm becomes familiar territory rather than an emergency measure. A simple practice anchors this work. Once a day, pause intentionally for 1 minute. Do nothing. Breathe slowly. Let thoughts move without chasing them. This minute trains emotional control more than any argument ever will. When life finally provokes you, you will not scramble for calm. You will already be carrying it. 4. Release what you cannot control to protect your peace. Seneca emphasized that suffering comes from resisting reality. That single idea cuts deeper than it first appears, because most anger issues do not come from what happens, but from the refusal to accept that it happened. Becoming emotionally untouchable begins when you stop fighting what is already real and start protecting your inner peace instead. Life rarely moves according to plan. Schedules collapse, people disappoint, effort goes unnoticed, and outcomes drift beyond intention. When the mind clings to how things should have gone, constant stress follows. The body tightens. Thoughts race. Emotional triggers multiply. Peace slips away, not because life is cruel, but because control is demanded where none exists. Releasing what you cannot control does not mean giving up or becoming passive. It means understanding where your power actually lives. Emotional control is not about forcing the world to behave. It is about refusing to waste energy on what cannot be changed. Many people believe that holding on proves strength, that pushing harder will restore balance. This belief fuels frustration because reality does not bend to insistence. Traffic still stalls. Plans still cancel. Words still land wrong. When control is sought externally, losing control internally becomes inevitable. This is why so many search for how to stay calm while remaining trapped in the same reactions. The most common mistake is confusing acceptance with weakness. People fear that letting go means tolerating injustice or settling for less. In truth, acceptance is a strategic decision. It separates what demands action from what demands release. Without this separation, every inconvenience feels personal. Emotional triggers grow sharper, and losing control becomes frequent because the mind treats each disruption as an attack. Inner peace cannot survive this posture. It requires discernment, not force. Stoic thought draws a clear boundary. What lies within your control is your judgment, your intention, and your response. Everything else belongs to chance, other people, or time. This distinction simplifies life. When a plan fails, the Stoic does not argue with reality. He adjusts. When insulted, he chooses whether the insult deserves space in his mind. When delayed, he breathes and moves forward. This approach reduces constant stress because energy stops leaking into resistance. Mental resilience grows when attention returns to what can be shaped. A quiet example shows how this works. A man parks his car and returns to find a dent in the door. No note, no apology. Anger rises quickly, sharp and hot. He could rage, replay the scene, and carry resentment through the evening. Instead, he pauses. He recognizes the damage cannot be undone by emotion. He handles the practical steps and releases the rest. The dent remains, but his inner peace does not suffer further damage. That choice protected more than a mood. It preserved control. He did not ignore the problem. He refused to let it dominate him. Releasing what cannot be controlled is an act of strength because it demands humility. It requires admitting that not everything bends to effort or fairness. Yet this humility frees attention. When the mind stops arguing with reality, clarity returns. Emotional control becomes easier because fewer battles are being fought. This is why Stoic practice feels calm rather than tense. It does not tighten the grip. It loosens it deliberately. Action grows from this understanding. When frustration appears, notice whether it comes from an unmet expectation. Ask whether the situation belongs to you or to chance. If it belongs to chance, release it without drama. This practice answers many searches for how to stop reacting, because reaction loses purpose when control is clearly defined. Over time, emotional triggers weaken because they no longer receive constant reinforcement. Inspiration follows naturally when you see how light life feels without unnecessary resistance. Peace stops depending on perfect conditions. Calm becomes portable. You begin to trust your ability to remain unbothered, even when plans fail or people disappoint. This trust builds mental resilience because it rests on what you can always access: your response. A simple practice anchors this shift. When something goes wrong, pause and name it silently as uncontrollable. Take one slow breath. Redirect attention to the next useful action, however small. This single step trains emotional control more effectively than analysis. Repeated daily, it reduces constant stress and restores inner peace. By releasing what you cannot control, you protect what matters most. You stop wrestling with reality and start walking alongside it, steady and intact. 5. Turn every conflict into emotional discipline. Conflict is like a mirror that reflects the parts of the ego that have not yet been trained. It appears without invitation and often at the worst moment, when patience is thin and pride is loud. Most people treat conflict as a threat that must be crushed or escaped. Becoming emotionally untouchable requires a different stance. Conflict is not the enemy, it is the training ground. When you meet it with awareness, it becomes a tool for emotional control rather than a source of damage. To turn conflict into discipline is to recognize what is actually at stake. The argument, the disagreement, the sharp tone across the room are rarely the real problem. The real problem is the internal reaction that follows. Anger issues surface when the ego demands immediate validation. Emotional triggers tighten the body and narrow the mind. Losing control feels justified because it feels personal. Yet this response hands power away. Each time you react automatically, you teach yourself that peace depends on other people behaving well. That belief guarantees constant stress. The common mistake is seeing conflict as a contest to win. Many assume that staying calm means letting others walk over them. They fear that restraint equals weakness. This misunderstanding keeps people trapped in cycles of escalation. Voices rise, words sharpen, relationships fray. The conflict grows, not because it mattered, but because reactions fed it. Those who search for how to stop reacting often overlook this pattern. They want fewer conflicts without changing how they meet them. Stoic thinking reframes the encounter. It asks a different question. Instead of asking who is right, it asks who is in control. Marcus Aurelius faced betrayal, rumor, and pressure on a scale few ever experience. Yet he trained himself to treat each confrontation as practice. He did not chase dominance. He cultivated steadiness. For him, conflict revealed where discipline was strong and where it needed work. This approach stripped conflict of its power to injure identity. What remained was information. A simple example shows how this works outside books. A customer speaks harshly to a service worker over a small mistake. The words are dismissive. The tone cuts. The instinct is to defend or retaliate. Instead, the worker listens, responds briefly, and resolves the issue without absorbing the insult. The customer leaves unsatisfied with drama. The worker leaves intact. That moment did not weaken him, it strengthened him. He practiced emotional control under pressure. Inner peace held. This is the shift that turns conflict into discipline. You stop asking how to make the other person change and start asking what this moment reveals about you. Does the urge to interrupt show impatience? Does the need to prove a point expose insecurity? Does silence feel unbearable because approval feels necessary? Each reaction is a signal. When noticed, it becomes material for growth. When ignored, it becomes a habit. Emotional discipline does not remove feeling, it directs it. Anger may rise, but it does not decide the response. Calm becomes an active stance rather than a passive absence of emotion. Over time, this stance changes how conflict feels. The body stays looser, the mind stays wider. You begin to stay calm, not because situations improve, but because you do. This answers many searches for how to control emotions in real conditions rather than ideal ones. Inspiration comes when you realize conflict no longer threatens your identity. It tests it. Each test survived without reaction adds weight to your presence. Others sense it. Conversations shift. Provocation loses effectiveness. This is how mental resilience forms quietly. You stop being the person conflict feeds on and become the one who uses it. Action begins with intention. Decide that the next conflict will be observed rather than obeyed. Notice the first impulse without acting on it. Let it pass. Choose words that serve clarity rather than victory. This choice feels small, but repeated, it changes the pattern. Emotional triggers lose force when they are no longer rewarded with action. A simple practice anchors this discipline. When conflict appears, slow your breathing and relax your jaw before speaking. This physical pause interrupts reaction. It creates space for choice. Use that space to respond with precision or not at all. This practice builds emotional control more reliably than avoidance ever could. Over time, conflict becomes familiar rather than frightening. You meet it steadily and unbothered. In that steadiness, you become emotionally untouchable. 6. Master the pause that keeps you untouchable. The pause is the boundary that protects you from being emotionally manipulated. It exists in the brief space between what happens and what you do next, and most people never notice it. They live on momentum, pushed by words, tone, timing, and pressure, believing speed equals strength. Becoming emotionally untouchable begins when you learn to see that space and choose to stand inside it. In that pause, calm has room to enter, and emotional control becomes possible. Without it, reactions rule, anger issues multiply, and losing control feels inevitable. The pause is not silence for show and not hesitation born of fear. It is deliberate restraint. It is the moment you refuse to let emotional triggers dictate your behavior. Many people search for how to stop reacting because they feel trapped by constant stress, yet they miss the simplest leverage point available to them. They believe control comes from having the right words ready or the strongest argument prepared. In reality, control comes from delaying action long enough for clarity to return. The pause interrupts the reflex that turns irritation into damage. The common mistake is thinking speed preserves respect. When challenged, criticized, or disrespected, reacting immediately feels necessary. The body urges action. The mind supplies justifications. This is how reaction disguises itself as authenticity. But speed often hands power away. The faster the reaction, the clearer it becomes that the trigger landed. Calm disappears and inner peace follows it out the door. This mistake keeps people cycling through the same outcomes, promising themselves that next time will be different while repeating the same pattern. Stoic thinking treats the pause as sacred ground. It teaches that mastery lives between impulse and action. Marcus Aurelius wrote to himself about choosing restraint before response, not to appear virtuous, but to preserve command of the mind. For him, the pause was not an absence of feeling. It was the moment feeling was placed under discipline. By honoring that space, he reduced the power of circumstance over character. A simple example shows how the pause works in ordinary life. A parent hears a sharp tone from a teenager and feels the familiar surge of irritation. Words rush forward. Instead of speaking, the parent takes one breath and waits. The room does not collapse. The world does not end. When speech returns, it is measured. The conversation changes direction. In that pause, emotional control protected the relationship and preserved dignity. Nothing dramatic happened, yet something essential was saved. The pause does more than prevent damage. It builds mental resilience. Each time you choose it, you reinforce a pattern of calm under pressure. Over time, staying calm becomes easier because the nervous system learns a new rhythm. Emotional triggers still appear, but they no longer command immediate action. This is how many find answers to how to stay calm and how to control emotions without forcing positivity or suppressing feelings. The pause allows feeling to pass without being obeyed. Inspiration grows when you realize how much power lives in this small space. You stop fearing moments of tension because they become familiar training. You stop rehearsing arguments because the reaction loses urgency. Inner peace stops depending on perfect timing or polite behavior from others. It rests on your ability to wait. That waiting is not a weakness. It is a discipline practiced in real time. Action begins with awareness. Notice the physical signs that signal a trigger: the tightening jaw, the quickened breath, the urge to speak. Instead of moving forward, stay still for one breath longer than feels comfortable. That extra breath is the pause. In it, ask what outcome matters. Often the answer quiets the impulse. Often words soften or disappear entirely. This practice reduces constant stress because it shortens emotional storms before they spread. A simple practice anchors this skill. When tension rises, delay your response by counting 3 slow breaths. Feel the body settle before choosing words. This short delay trains emotional control more reliably than analysis ever will. Repeated daily, it weakens anger issues and strengthens inner discipline. Over time, the pause becomes automatic. You no longer scramble for calm. You arrive with it. Mastering the pause does not make life gentle. It makes you steady. Provocation loses leverage when it cannot rush you. In that steadiness, you remain unbothered, clear, and intact. The pause stands guard between impulse and action, and as long as you protect it, you remain emotionally untouchable. Becoming emotionally untouchable is not a single insight, but a daily discipline. Therefore, train calm before pressure, release what you cannot control, and master the pause in every conflict. Practice these principles consistently, and strength will follow. Share your own experiences and progress in the comments below.